going on, fight fans? It's your boy Ak.
And I'm Barak, the boxing bully.
And we're back. This is the DAZN Boxing Show. I know you guys missed us. A lot to talk about. The bomb. Alycia Baumgardner wins big. Frank Martin runs into some trouble but gets the victory. We'll talk about those fights and a few more right here on the opening bell. Barak, I want to take it straight to Detroit. I tell you, there has to be a certain level of jitters that you have facing an opponent that you once lost to, even though you've obtained so much success to that point. There's something there, right? There's always that factor there. You would think, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't see that from Alycia Baumgardner. I saw the level of confidence that she's developed over the years, becoming undisputed and being real comfortable in that boxing ring. And yes, there were some rounds that Christina looked good in and had moments, but I thought I saw some really excellent body punching and some superb boxing from Alycia Baumgardner. I was impressed with that performance, Barak.
I think Alycia Baumgardner had a certain level of respect because she did lose to her. She did have a really, really tough fight with her, but that was like a year into her career. So I think even though she had that level of respect, probably more respect than she had for Mikaela Mayer or anybody else she ever beast with before a fight, there was a level of confidence that she had because she was so confident after having these new trainers. You know, God bless her trainer who passed away, which was Harrison's father, and now working with Tony Harrison. I think she's just totally confident in the skill level that she has, the things that she has learned, the performances that she's already put in the bank. Like, there was no doubt that she was confident and she showed it. And yes, Linardatou is like Delphine Persoon. She's a machine. She keeps coming. Yeah. But this particular Alycia was conditioned and her jab was on point. She had speed, she had pop, she had everything, and she just outclassed her.
And one of the things that impressed me the most is the body punching, especially the left hook to the body and being in the pocket right there and landing those body shots. You know, when it comes to women, in certain styles that I've seen, the elite women that are, I guess, on top of the sport, you don't see as much body punching as I saw with that Alycia Baumgardner fight. I think that it shows just how much work she's putting into the gym and getting prepared and fighting like a machine. And I think that she showed me that when it comes to skill level, right, pound for pound, Alycia Baumgardner is one of the most skilled fighters in the world. And I like the names that she's calling out after the fight. She's calling out our girl, Amanda Serrano, who's arguably pound for pound the hardest puncher in the sport of boxing from the southpaw stance. It's going to be a different type of fight with Amanda Serrano, Barak, but I think this has a recipe for a massive fight when it comes to styles.
100%. That's an amazing fight. And the thing about Amanda is that she'll fight anybody, and you see she'll fight in any weight class. She'll probably fight at 154 pounds. But the thing is, I think you look at Alycia, she reminds me of somebody like Boots Ennis, whereas, you know, except Alycia has accomplished so much, don't get me wrong, she's undisputed. She's way above the level that he's accomplished in the men's boxing, but she's that young 29-year-old who's beating everybody, looking spectacular, and there's still big, older names that Serrano wants to fight, you know, and of course it's that rematch with Katie Taylor. So Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano would be our Bud versus Spence. And so where Alycia is, she's kind of stuck in that space right there. But at the same time, we know Serrano will fight anybody. And if Katie Taylor rematches Cameron, then maybe that fight can happen between Serrano and Alycia.
I'm glad you brought Boots Ennis up, Barak, because my question to you that I was gonna pose was, when she won, when she won in London and shocked everybody, became champion, winning the IBO title, there was a lot of tension her way. Since then, she's had some big fights. Obviously, the rivalry with Mikaela Mayer. Is it safe to say that she's not like Boots, who hasn't really got those accomplishments? Is it safe to say that she's lived up to the hype?
Hell yeah.
That we saw back then.
No, she's one of the best fighters I've ever seen. Literally, she's one of the best fighters I've ever seen. And I always say that this is the best era of boxing and especially in the women's as well. I've been seeing the skill level of women evolving to an unbelievable level, and she's one of the leaders of the pack.
Yeah.
She's one of the leaders in the pack, and movements that you normally wouldn't see, and capabilities that you normally wouldn't see in women's boxing, and she's one of the best doing it.
Well, I mean, either opponent that she chooses next, I know it's going to be a name that we're all going to be interested in. I would love to see Amanda versus Alycia, but yes, I still want to see the rematch between Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. And you mentioned,
and why not fight Michaela Mayer?
Look, that's also a fight. Michaela moved up in weight, and so I don't see that fight happening soon. And you mentioned that this is the best ever in boxing. You and I have been mentioning that for a while. One of the reasons is because there's so many loaded divisions in boxing, right? 135 being one of them. So we'll shift gears here and go to Frank Martin against Haratunian, who Frank Martin, a lot of attention being that he does train on that loaded stable, that Derek James stables with Errol Spence, now Ryan Garcia, Anthony Joshua, Jamel Charlo, and he's been calling out big names like Tank and Keyshawn Davis. So he ran into a guy that came there to win, and it was a tough fight. He lost rounds in there. I still think he was a more skilled fighter in there. He was a more dominant fighter overall. Punch Stats said that to, and not only that, just ring generalship. But sometimes a more skilled guy runs into trouble, and he ran into trouble. Going into that fight late, it was a little questionable. I mean, is he going to? I think that knockdown at the end when he took a knee, that was huge. That helped him a lot in that fight.
Absolutely.
But with all that being said, Barak, I mean, this guy, people were talking about him fighting the elite fighters at 135. He wanted those fights. Is it safe to say after this performance, do we have to take a step back and say, hey, maybe he needs a couple of other big wins with B-class fighters before talking about Tank and those guys?
There's two ways we could look at that. We could say, yeah, maybe he needs to take a step back, but there's also the way that I think is right. That the way I think is right to look at this is that Haratunian is like the Derevyanchenko when he was younger. The guy who didn't have the name, but he had the experience and he had the skill set. Haratunian is an Olympic medalist. I believe he won the bronze medal. Like, he can fight. He can fight. It just sucks when you have an unknown fighter give a fighter who's become popular a hard time, and then all of a sudden you shoot the guy down, the known fighter, which is Frank Martin, and say, oh, he's just not ready for the elite.
Kind of like a lot of
Derevyanchenko gave Daniel Jacobs trouble, Triple G trouble. He gave everybody trouble along the way.
Now, not only Derevyanchenko, Barak, even a lot of guys that Terrence Crawford has faced that didn't have big names, and people wouldn't give him credit for those wins. So, but you know what? I think that's a recipe to make you better, because as the people around you might think you're not fighting anybody, but you're fighting guys that are real threats in there, making you a better fighter, giving you more experience for those big fights.
Yeah, it makes you a better fighter, but at the end of the day, you want to make money. You want to make money, and you want to be matched up against the big names in the division, and hopefully it doesn't shoot him down that ladder because he had such a tough fight. I mean, at the end of the day, he had a tough fight, but he pulled it through. Right. You know, he won the fight. Close or not, he won the fight, and late knockdowns always look good in the fight. Yeah, it shows a lot too.
It shows condition, how in shape you are, how you can go, because he was going hard for 12 rounds.
It shows your heart too, because you didn't back down. When the pressure was on you, you didn't back down. You didn't lose composure, and you were able to get the knockdown late in the fight. That says a lot for a fighter.
You know, I posed that question to you, but I'll say right now, I would love to see Frank Martin against any top lightweight. I think that his skill level and determination, condition in that ring will make a great fight. Now, those guys, they all want big money fights. You know, the Tank Davises, the Ryan Garcias, he threw a shot at me. Well, he was doing an interview and said he would stop Devin Haney in 8 rounds. I mean, Devin is one of the most defensive fighter, one of the best defensive fighters in all of boxing. He's so much bigger than Frank Martin. That's a tough task, but maybe that's something he feels that he has to do in order to get those big fights. Call those big names out and throw shots at them, get them frustrated, get them on the Twitter, get them on Instagram, and maybe you can pull off Rolando Rolly, and I'm not comparing them on skill level. Frank Martin is way beyond Rolando Romero in terms of skill level, but I'm talking about using social media to your advantage.
Yeah, I seen Devin Haney respond on Twitter with some kind of silly face or whatever, like some weird face, like, okay, yeah, you'll knock me out in 8 rounds. But I think he's far from Devin Haney, because Devin Haney got all the belts, and he's going to fight only somebody like a Tank Davis or maybe Shakur, or move up to 140 and fight Regis or somebody like that. I think he's going to look for the bigger fights. So that's not going to be a fight to happen. But I wouldn't mind seeing, you mentioned Keyshawn Davis. I don't know, maybe that was an accident. You mentioned him. He's not one of the big names, but we can see, even though he's new to professionals, that he's very, very skillful. But I think Frank Martin's kind of, had bigger fights already, and probably don't want to fight a fighter like that. But I think that would be a great fight.
It would be a phenomenal fight. And he took to Instagram on his social media and was recording the fight, the last few rounds, and was talking about it. Keyshawn Davis was saying that you guys never compare me to these other regular fighters. I'm a throwback fighter. I'm a fighter. When you talk about me, talk about the elite guys like the Shakurs, the Devins, and the Tanks. Don't compare me to that fighter, because, they had a little quarrel there. We all know that Keyshawn was throwing shots at Errol Spence and at Frank Martin at one point on social media. Is very confident, very braggadocious, but he backs it up in the ring. So I like that fight. But to add to the 135-pound division, Barak, Olympic medalist who beat Keyshawn Davis in the Olympics for the gold medal, makes his pro debut, Andy Cruz. Look, skills pay the bills. These Cubans get busy, Barak, and he showed why he was one of the best amateurs in all of boxing, why he was an amateur. And yes, he's older, not coming into the pros like a lot of these American amateurs do. These guys like to be really, really successful in the amateurs. But I think we have another possible superstars in our hands in the 135-pound division, man. It's getting almost too loaded.
Listen, when Keyshawn Davis is very, very good friends with Shakur Stevenson, they spar together. They came up in the amateurs together. And when Shakur Stevenson tweets out something positive about the guy that beat you, Andy Cruz, about your fighting skill, that says a lot.
Says a lot.
Shakur is not going to fake anything. He gives credit where credit is due to good fighters, and he gave a good comment to Andy Cruz. But Andy Cruz looked good in there. He looked like a professional fighter. Probably gonna learn to sit down more on his punches as time goes on, because even Shakur had to learn that, to sit down on his punches now. And now he's like a beast in there. Whether you can get the guy or not, you can punish him. So I think Andy Cruz is definitely going to be one of those guys. And I'm really psyched to see if they're going to rush him and maybe throw him in there with Keyshawn Davis quick, or take their time. Because look, Andy Cruz's first fight was some IBF international title, so already that's telling us that he's on that fast track, and he's going to be fighting bigger names very soon.
That Lomachenko type of track. But I do think that fight can be built up a little bit more. We all know in the amateur boxing scene, Cruz is a big deal, but he has to become more notable athlete here in America. And even Keyshawn himself, to grow their profiles. I think that fight could be a bigger fight, maybe a year and a half down the line, because they have the storyline about the Olympic fight. So I think we could wait on that one. Let's move to the heavyweight division. Barak, Jermaine Franklin, coming off a loss from Anthony Joshua in London, comes up with a big win this past weekend. I was impressed. Can he work his way back up to getting another big fight with another elite heavyweight? Did that performance say that much?
Well, what the performance did was it kept him there, where he's at right now. And he just happened to get his claim to fame because he had a very close fight with Dillian White. Some say that he won, and he lasted 12 rounds. And that sometimes I think people give people too much credit for lasting 12 rounds. But he actually showed in both fights that he's a very, very skillful fighter, and he's going to give problems to every fighter, no matter what, no matter how long it lasts. But he just fought a guy who he couldn't get out of there. This guy was tough. This Mexican guy was tough. The first few rounds, you're like, oh snap, he's fighting the Mexican version of himself. You know, they're both chubby in there, but they're both very, very skillful. Nice head movements, some speed. Franklin was faster, of course.
Are you saying that Jermaine Franklin is there, but he's always going to be good enough just to challenge those big names, but never be an elite heavyweight or win the title, but just a guy with a big enough name where we won't complain about the big fight?
No, your question was, you know, does it, where does that put him? His win, does it propel him or whatever? And I said, no, he's just there. I don't know. You know, that's the thing. He already fought Joshua and he wasn't able to beat Joshua. Joshua won that fight convincingly, you know, so therefore that's one right there you couldn't beat. So I don't know if but look what he did with Dillian White. And Dillian White is not a champion, but he's a top level fighter.
We have to stop doing that. We have to stop when a guy almost beats a guy or people feel like he won that fight. If it's not to the point where it was dramatic or where people are still talking about it, let's not keep using it. I mean, the guy lost to Dillian White.
That's what I'm saying. Fight. Well, no, see, that fight, I give him credit for. No, that's the fight I give him credit for. I'm not like everybody else.
What does that do for you in your career? What does that do for you?
That shows you're a good fighter. What
does that do for your boxing career? Hey, I almost beat Dillian White.
It got him a fight with the cash cow. That's what it did for him. It got him a fight with the cash cow. It did. And it should. Rightfully so. It's like, oh my God, this is somebody that Dillian White was supposed to blow over, and then maybe he get that fight.
So he cashed in already what he earned from quote unquote almost beating Dillian White. He cashed that in already with the AJ fight. What does he have to do now to get another big fight? I think something bigger than what he did this past weekend.
That was a good fight. He didn't get the guy out of there, but he beat the guy. He beat the guy convincingly. The guy just happened to take all his shots. His body work was phenomenal. I think he hurt him to the body multiple times, but he just couldn't get him out of there. I think that just keeps his name relevant. That's it. That means his name is in the mix now. That's all. And that's where you need to be. You just need to be around when somebody needs a fight, they're calling you.
Fair enough. So, all right, that's our show for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Peace and love. Stay safe. We out of here.
Introducing the new DAZN Boxing Show podcast. No matter the time or the place, getting your boxing content has become easier than ever. Tune in as we give you exclusive insights, predictions, fight night recaps, and more alongside the biggest names in the game. All for free. Available globally every Thursday across all audio streaming platforms and with new episodes dropping weekly to give you the latest news. Just type in the DAZN Boxing Show podcast, listen in, and enjoy.